the show is back.
Wait,
so,
sorry.
It's so nice to hear that people are excited about it, you know, because you never know, you don't know whether you're going to get invited back to the person, to somebody's home,
What was the initial spark of an idea or nugget of an idea that led to Heroes Reborn? What popped in your mind that made you go, I have to revisit this world?
Well, I've not made any secret out of the fact that I always felt there was more story to tell, and we did leave off at a time and a plot point, a major plot point. It might have been the biggest plot point of the entire series. Was our final minute of the series when Hayden Panettiere's character comes out of the, outs the idea that people with powers existed, and so the whole world for the first time really knew about these people, and then we end the show, and it just felt like the nugget of the idea was just built into that moment. It was almost an obligatory idea that you have to come back and deal with the idea that the world now knows about these powers. Had we come back on a fifth season, we would have probably told the story of how the world felt about them, and then slowly started to turn against them, But because we've come back and decided that we were going to start 5 years from that moment, same amount of time that the audience has spent away from that moment, we jumped over the whole process of that and went right to the place where there's just persecution and paranoia and exploitation and all of that. So a lot of the story was really just dictated by what we left cliffhanging for the audience.
So this is where you think Heroes might have ultimately ended up if it were now that there had been a season.
I agree that was exactly what you said was a big part of our first week in the writers' room, was talking about what is the continuum that would have led to 5 years later, and trying to stay as true to that as possible so that the audience feels that in their DNA, like baked into the DNA of it. They know that there is that thread that goes back. Yes, there were those missing years, and that's going to be really fun to explore, and flashbacks and the games and all that stuff. But you can see, okay, when Claire jumped off of that thing, here we are 5 years later, and this is what the world looks like. People are registering, and having to hide under a rock kind of thing, and so, yeah. Anyway, that's...
question. How did you go about selecting the returning characters? Was that decision made first, or did you map out the plot and then approach the actors?
Well, there's sort of two answers to that. One, for some of them, Jack Coleman's character, Masaoka's character, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted that. I wanted Jack Coleman's character because he was the one who I wanted this Heroes Reborn to have a bit more of a thriller quality to it, and to me, Jack Coleman's character, H.R.G., always had that kind of 70s paranoid thriller character in it. 3 Days of the Condor, Parallax View, the man who's trying to figure stuff out and the world is, doesn't know who to trust. And so I wanted that character. And then we knew we were going to deal a little bit with the idea of time and bending time a little bit, and so we needed Hiro Nakamura. And then as we went along and broke story is when we started to say, you know what, it would be great if when HRG walks in that room, instead of it just being some guy in a suit, it's Matt Parker, it's Greg Grunberg character, and we got all excited about that. We talked about it in the writers' room, and I'd go in the office and pick up the phone and call Greg and say, could you actually come and do a few episodes with her? So that's actually how it went with each one of these. As soon as they came up in the writers' room, I reached out to them.
What were those conversations like when you get to call those old actors and bring them back to the show?
Oh, listen, first of all, several of us have stayed in touch, but just jumping ahead to sort of an offshoot of that is working with them and them working on the show. It was such a shorthand. I mean, they occupied these characters and they knew them so well, and to watch them come onto the set and be these characters was it's one thing in theory, but when you actually get there on the set and they're doing scenes together, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And 5 years just disappears, It's really, it was very, one of the great experiences of my life, working with you don't get to do this. It's like remounting a great play that you did, with the same cast.
So you have your 13 episode limit set already. If things go well, do you have more stories already kind of on the back burner, ready to go for more subsequent heroes?
Well, the beautiful thing about the hero's premise of an indeterminate number of people out there in the world who are popping up and waking up to their powers, coupled with the idea that the world always needs saving, I think really means that it's a very malleable, elastic premise. And so we have not given any thought to what happens after episode 13. This is a self-contained story, and if we're invited back, with the audience, and I believe that we can find more story to tell.
All
right.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.